Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Welcome to Beacon Institute Presents Help Healing Everyday Life Problems in a COVID 19 World. My name is Dr. Shana D. Lewis, and I am half of your host for tonight's or this week's virtual summit. And here's my co host. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I am Dr. Rochelle Whitaker, the other half of Beacon Institute.
We are super excited you are here tonight. So many of you have registered already, and so excited that you have decided to be here. Now, if you are willing, please share this video with someone in your world. Click the link, share it with them. We are happy to have folks join us from all over the world. We have registrants from everywhere across the country, and so we're so excited for you all to be here. Now, allow me to introduce myself so you're clear about who I am and why am I here. Well, I said earlier, my name is Dr. Shana D. Lewis. I am a licensed professional counselor. I'm also a motivational speaker. I'm a professor. I'm an educator. I'm really just a servant, y'all. And one of the ways that I love to serve is education. As a professor, it is a counselor educator. It's just in me to share information with folks who need it, to help us all create lives we can feel excited about. And right now, in a COVID 19 world, that looks completely different than it ever has before. And this is actually our second time doing this conference. We did it last year. It was not in a COVID 19 world, though. But here we are in our new world that we have, trying to help us all figure out how to navigate this space. And here's my co host, Dr. Rochelle Whitaker. Tell us a little bit more about who you are and why are you here?
So I am Dr. Rochelle Whitaker, the other half of Beacon Institute. Like I said, I am an educational psychologist, mental health therapist, parent educator, all of those things. But more so, what I am is an educator. And so it is my greatest honor and assignment to educate everyone on mental health and things that are related. And so I come to you all to bring you all information and facts about what's going on in a COVID-19 world. Because as Dr. Shana said, it is very different than what it was and it's going to be. And so get ready because we got a lot to share.
Oh, we do. We have an amazing weeks lined up for you. Listen, this was not by mistake or by chance. We have hooked up with some amazing folks who have a lot to share. But before we get into all of them, we kind of want to just begin a dialogue with you. So if you are watching us live on the YouTube page, please hop in the comments, say hello, let us know that you're here. Tell us where you're watching from. We want to make sure that we acknowledge those who are here with us live. And also don't forget to share this with your network just by clicking on the link or clicking on the share button on the YouTube page and sharing it with folks in your network. And so we're in a space right now, Dr. Whitaker, where the world is on its heels, literally on its heels. We're in a space, a place where we have never, ever been before. So we're in what I call that foreign land, uncharted territory. You know, I feel like I'm a visitor, right, in this world that I used to feel like I knew pretty well. But so much of this, I have no clue. And I know I'm not alone in that. You know, there's many folks who are struggling the same way. What are some of the stats, though? Let's look at it from just the global aspect. When we think about the medical impact, because that's the first space when people think of a COVID-19 world, we think about the medical impact, which is definitely important. What do those numbers look like? Where are we today? Because what we know is it changes rapidly day to day. So where are we right now?
So today, there are 5,400,608 confirmed cases globally.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are 344,760 deaths. That's global. And it's affecting 188 countries and regions. So everywhere, there's not a person, there's not a state, there's not a country that has not been impacted. Numbers may be lower, but everybody is being impacted.
Wow. I can't even repeat those numbers that you just said. This is a bunch. So there's not a country, there's not a corner, there's not a nothing that has not been impacted by this virus, like every single place. So we're in a space and we have never, and this is one of the reasons why this is so major, is because we've never been in this position before where the entire globe is experiencing the very same emergency, traumatic situation, whatever we want, a pandemic at the very same time. So we've had where here we're Dr. Rochelle and are located in Houston. So we've had hurricanes and we've had floods and we've had these things and they've had those in other parts of the country. So what that meant was that you could come from the north to the south to help me.
Right.
Because it didn't affect you. But in a COVID-19 world, who do you call? What do you do when we're all impacted?
We have to support one another. That's all we can do, because
Yeah.
we are all impacted. We are all affected by this, in some form or fashion.
In a huge fashion. So when we think about just the huge global impact physically and medically, we understand that. What parts of this is what I want to talk about are the mental health aspects, because a lot of obvious attention goes toward the physical piece, clearly, because that's the forefront of it. But it's going to have some fallout on the backside of it. And if you're watching and you have questions or comments, put them in the chat box. We will be going through there. We will absolutely be answering those questions and comments for you as well tonight. What are some of those mental health fallouts? What are we looking at? What trends are happening, Dr. Rochelle?
So nearly half of Americans are reporting anxiety as the number one disturbance or mental health issue that they're experiencing, right? Because people are afraid and there are nowhere to really get answers. I mean, you hear so many competing things that it's hard to know where to get answers. And so now as the country opens back up, people are having anxiety about having to make the choice to send their kids to daycare, to go to the grocery store, to reopen their business. So anxiety is high, and it's high. Nearly half of Americans are experiencing some form of anxiety right now.
And some form of anxiety, so many people are to the point of panic.
Yes.
Panic attacks are real. Dr. Whitaker and I both have private practices for counseling. And so we are practicing clinicians, not just educators, but we're practicing. So that means we are working with people every day who are living in the throes of this. And I'm finding that I have clients who've never had panic attacks before and now experiencing them because of just what you described. Now I have to go out of the house. I need to go to the store. They're calling me back to work. They're saying that, they are opening, like you just described, camps for the summer. I have to go to work, but I have a kid. So what do I do with the child? So there's a lot of questions and we don't really have concrete answers about what's the exact best thing to always do. So we're in a position where we're left in some cases with panic. Because we don't know what to do. So what kind of things are you seeing with your clients, Dr. Rochelle, that your clients are describing, talking about, and how are you trying to help them?
So a lot of what I'm seeing is depression, right? Because a lot of my clients are socially isolated, and if they've been affected by COVID-19, they are dealing with the reals of what that has been like for them to have come out of social isolation and then trying to enter back into some normalcy. And that is causing them a lot of grief and strife and struggle. And so what I'm trying to do is help them to process what it is that what it is that they've experienced and what it is that they're experiencing, going out. Like, how can we work on those things? What are you doing? Like, who are you listening to? How much social media and news are you listening to? Are you getting outside? Are you connecting with other people? What does your support system look like? Those are all things that we're discussing, and I'm asking them to help them navigate this new territory and to kind of help them to manage the things that they're feeling.
And I'm having the same issue with mine as well too. Folks are panicking, folks are depressed, folks are confused. That's a really good one that I'm thinking about. There's a lot of confusion because I'm thinking the question, what am I supposed to do? So when I see, when I go out to the store and some people have on masks and some people don't, and some people are social distancing and some people aren't, and I'm wondering, is it a problem? Is it not a problem? Am I making too big of a deal of this, or what is going on? And so people are lost to figure out, what do I do? So what I've been telling my clients is, don't look to other people to determine what's best for you and yours. You really need to decide those things for yourself. Because what I know for sure is only you get to decide what's best for you and your family. But know whatever choices you make or don't make are going to impact other people around you, just like other people's choices can impact us as well too. So the confusion is rampant. There's a whole lot of things that folks are struggling with that we really are working. I'm working to help them be empowered to make their own decisions based on information, right? Based on information that they can find.
I think you make a good point. The goal, I think for a lot of clinicians is to empower our clients to make the decision or the choice that works for them, right? Because nobody knows what the fallout is on the other side of the choice that you make. And I think that's where people are struggling. So if I send my child to daycare, what does that mean? On the other side, does that mean that I'm risking them to be infected? Does that mean the people at the daycare are going to do what they're supposed to? It's, it's a hard thing, but in order for you to, be able to survive and thrive, you have to go to work. So your child has to go somewhere. So you have to make the choices that are best suited for your family and try to mitigate as much, I hate to use the word damage, but
the consequences, the outcomes.
Benefit cost analysis, right? Your child go hungry, you in a situation too. So
I mean, that's a difficult choice to make, and it's tough. It's really tough. I mean, and the thing that I'm encouraging people to do is really consider the cost, right? Because every choice we make, it does come at a cost, and it's tough. It's just tough. I don't know that there are any easy answers. The thing about it is we're all in this thing at the same time. It'd be different if we had some kind of vantage point. We don't. I mean, the only thing that we have as clinical folks is we have some frameworks to put this stuff inside that can maybe help us to see it in a way that's less emotionally traumatizing. But the reality is we're all in the same space together, because just what we're describing are the same things that we're negotiating for our own families as well.
Yes, exactly.
That's the thing. That is the thing. It is.
And I think that's one of the things as a helping, as a first responder, right? A lot of times we don't mental health professionals as first responders, but those are things that we have to, navigate ourselves as well, because we're all impacted. So, what are we doing? Because we need, just like everybody else is seeking help, we're carrying all of those first responders' traumatic events. So there's that vicarious trauma, we're experiencing our own set of trauma, but then there's that vicarious trauma that we're experiencing from reliving their experiences, helping them, listening. And so helpers need help too.
Now that's the whole thing, is helpers need help too. And so we want folks to understand that right now, one of the greatest things that you do have access to is mental health counseling. There was a time before now that folks would say, hey, I don't have time to go get counseling. I can't sit in traffic for an hour. All my insurance won't pay for it. They all paying for it now.
Yeah.
They're paying for it. And most clinicians, not all, but most clinicians are in a virtual capacity. So you can stay at home in the comfort and safety and security of your own home, and you can access a clinician anywhere in the state where you live, basically. And it is perfectly fine, right? And so I have found, and my entire practice, just like yours, flipped to a virtual practice pretty quickly after the pandemic broke out. But what I found is it works just as well for clients right now as opposed to not having any help at all.
Right.
And that is the dangerous space when folks decide not to get help at all, for whatever reason. But what we're saying is get the help because it's available. It is available. We'll give you resources throughout this week of where you can go look to find a clinician. I'll just tell you one right now, psychologytoday.com. You go there and you put in your zip code and you put in what kind of insurance you have, you put in what kind of issue you have, you will come up with several therapists, lists of therapists in your area that you can access, many of them who will also be operating in a virtual world. So help is available, and we want to encourage folks to access the help and not get it because you don't know how you can access it right now. It is definitely a valuable resource that you want to access right now today. You do.
And so I just want to say too, if you're worried about cost, right now, insurance is covering teletherapy. So if that is something that is keeping you from seeking help, you can use your insurance. And then if you're like, okay, well, I don't have insurance, a lot of clinicians are offering reduced rates. Maybe their interns are providing services, or maybe they're providing services pro bono. So don't not seek help because you're like, well, I can't afford it. There are clinicians, and if you look on Psychology Today, there are clinicians are now using video to talk about their services. So please use the resources that are available.
Yes, and we will provide you those as well. If you register for this conference, you will get an email. In one of the emails that you will receive, it will have resources that are available to you on a national basis that you'll be able to access as after this conference is complete. That's the value of registration. If you haven't registered and you're watching this through some other platform, be sure you go to our page, beaconinstitute.net, and register at any point so that you will also get the replays as well as get the resources and other things that we will provide to you at such time as those emails come out. Now, some other things that are happening right now, Dr. Rochelle, that I continue to hear and see is the grieving process looks so different now than it once did. Because of the high number of cases you described, because of the high number of deaths that have occurred, and not even just because of deaths related to COVID-19. People are passing for other reasons that have nothing to do with COVID-19. It is a major, it's a struggle because nothing looks the same. The way we used to grieve, the way we used to process loss, there's not a funeral the way we used to know it. You can't always go to their house and comfort. People are feeling at a loss to even what to do after something occurs, as something as common as a loss, but it doesn't even look the same anymore. That's a struggle. I mean, that's another thing. We'll touch on that this week. We do have an expert in grief that's going to join us, Dr. Jita Robinson. I believe it's on Wednesday night, who will discuss grief in this world, but it looks totally different. One of the things that I heard this somewhere, it's not my idea, but I definitely agree with it, is that we'll come out of this thing one of two different ways because of the trauma and the loss that folks are going to experience. We'll either have what we call post-traumatic stress, which is very symptomatic. That's a diagnosis that shows up in the DSM, or we'll have post-traumatic growth. Right. So on either side of that, there is a trauma that has occurred, and we want to understand clinically we're all experiencing the trauma. Can you explain a little bit about the trauma aspect of COVID-19? And then I want to go back and describe a little bit more about the stress and the growth that we may have after this trauma has subsided.
So one of the things that for you to consider something to be a trauma is that it impacts your daily living, right? And so COVID-19 has come in and it has impacted every form of your life, right? Going to the grocery store, wearing gloves, wearing masks, making sure the baskets are cleaned. It's a whole like production to go to the grocery store now. Then childcare. So schools closed without any notice. And so schools closed really before businesses did. So parents are thrown into, oh my gosh, what do I do now? So schools closed, daycares closed. And so that alone would, is a traumatic experience because you're trying to figure out, what do I do with my kid? And I still have to provide livelihood for my family. That's a trauma. What if you had a surgery scheduled and it was something that you needed? And the hospitals closed and said, you're just going to have to wait because we have all of these cases of COVID-19 that we can't, we're not trying to take in, we're not doing these surgeries right now. And so we're talking about health, we're talking about work, we're talking about family, almost every aspect, I won't say almost every aspect of your life was affected when COVID-19 came in and just shut everything down. That is traumatic. It impacts your daily living like nothing else. And so that is trauma, right? And I'll also say that COVID-19, because it didn't have, there were so many unknowns. It's a virus. We don't know how it's transmitted. We don't know. We just know, wear gloves, wear masks. But even knowing that, we didn't know anything. We're still not 100% sure on how it's transmitted. And we're getting initially, I think we know a little bit more now than we did before, but we were constantly being barraged with different competing information about different things. So all of that, things are shutting down. You don't know if you're going to have the things that you need. So, in the beginning, we didn't have toilet paper. We didn't have.
Let's not forget about that. The toilet paper was a real thing. Yes.
We didn't have cleaning supplies. So they're telling you, make sure you have cleaning supplies, make sure you have toilet paper, but your resources are even limited. No matter how much money you have, you can't get Amazon because they don't have the supplies you need. So it's kind of like they wanted you to shelter in place, but you're limited to the amount of resources. Even going to the grocery store, you're limited on the number of items you can purchase. So, it's just kind of like out of nowhere. I mean, it just kind of hit us all of a sudden, and you just have to figure it out. That's traumatic. That is very traumatic.
It is. And we're helpless in the whole thing, right? Because there's not any, like you just said, no amount of money could fix the problem. The folks who on the high, SES, middle, low, wherever you sit, you're affected in the same way. You may have resources to be able to purchase things if it's available, but if it's not available, you can't buy what's not there. So the health aspect of this, we are in a space where we can't even help ourselves in some fundamental ways, like going to get toilet paper at the beginning. So with that level of a trauma that covers every single aspect of our lives, I just really want to make sure people understand we are all suffering inside of a traumatic situation. As far as a mental health issue, this is a major mental health issue that we're all suffering inside of. Our response may be different though. So what I was saying earlier, that you may either have post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic stress looks like some of the symptomology where we're not functioning well, right? That means you're not sleeping, you're up all night, or you sleep too much, or you're eating too much, or not eating at all, or you're avoiding the conversation completely. There are some folks who are acting as if this is a joke and it's not a real thing. That's a response, right? And deciding, you know what, this is not really that big of a deal. I'll be okay, in the sense that I'm not going to do anything different about my world, right? As opposed to listening to what folks are saying, our leaders and our health officials are asking us to do to protect ourselves. So you can find yourself in a traumatic, what we call PTSD. That's what it is clinically. And that takes time, over time, to get there. It takes 90 days worth of symptomology have passed for one to be diagnosed with PTSD, okay? Which can be a clinical diagnosis that one can have. There's a whole lot of things symptomatically that occur to have that diagnosis, but we may have character traits of it without being diagnosed. And that's what I'm talking about, where we can't think straight, we sleep all the time, or we can't sleep at all, or we can't make decisions, or we're avoiding places or conversations and things like that. And you're anxious all the time, very fearful of things, right? It can happen. That could be a possible potential outcome. But there's another outcome, which is the post-traumatic growth, which is where we gain new skills, where we're able to use things in different ways to get to where we need to go. I just believe, and this is and probably because I'm a counselor and because it's the way I think as well too, which is probably why I'm a counselor. I just believe that anything that we experience, we can make it what we want it to. And I'm not saying we can change COVID-19, but we can change our perspective about how it affects our world, right? So while I can't affect the change open up, I can decide that I feel more grateful to be home with my children than I don't. And I'm like, oh, I wish they would go back to school. Like, that's a choice I get to make about how I frame and see what's happening. So I want folks to understand that your frame of reference, your mindset is major. It is so major in this whole thing. Tonight we actually had Dr. Obom Bowen, who was going to join us tonight to talk about mindset, but technology wouldn't allow him to join us tonight. So we'll have that conversation another night and let you know when it's going to happen. But we do want to talk about this mindset some tonight, though, Dr. Rochelle, because in the midst of the trauma situation that we all find ourselves in, how we see things is everything. I say often, nothing means anything until you give it meaning. Nothing means anything until you give it meaning. If you make it mean the worst thing in the world that could have happened to you, if you make it mean that, I can't do anything, I can't go anywhere, so, I'm just not going to do nothing, you could make it mean that. But then that comes with a consequence too. Or you can make it mean something very different. So Dr. Rochelle, talk a little bit about the other types of things we could think about as far as mindset is concerned, because I really want folks to understand that we have a choice and an option in how we see it. We don't control the situation, but we have ability to control how we see what is happening to us right now.
Right. So let me just you touched on a few examples, but one of them could be, your outlook, the reality of the situation could be, oh my gosh, I'm having to stay at home and work from home. The way that you could look at it is, well, now I don't have to be in traffic all the time. Now I have extra time to spend eating better. Or I have extra time to just mill around my house or to pick up. So that could be one way you could look at it. Or maybe, you're looking at it from the vantage point or I won't say vantage point. The reality of the situation is my kids are at home all day, and that's going to drive, and it's going to be crazy. And so you could say, well, it gives me the opportunity to spend more time with my kids, or to even be able to hear and see what they're learning. That's kind of framing your mindset. Or maybe even, I won't have the ability to exercise. And so the way you could see it now is, well, I can at least walk around my neighborhood, or I can spend time in my backyard exercising because now I can't go to the gym. So it's all in, like you said, the way that you frame it and the way that you look at it. I think if you started this COVID-19 in a space where everything was negative because everything was changing, it's easy to fall into a depressive state, right? Because this has gone on way longer than anybody ever thought or imagined. But if you started out, and you can always change your mindset, but if you started off, looking at it from, I'm so glad for this reset, I'm so glad for this slowdown, then even though it's gone longer, you can see the positive in it. And I think that is everything. Mindset is everything. It will change situations, or maybe not even the situation won't change, but the way that you view the situation will change so much that it won't even be as despairing as it once was, or as you once thought it was.
Exactly. Listen, it is such a choice, and you get to decide. That's the beauty of this thing. You get to decide. We have to realize that it's not something that's happening to us. We get to decide what we do inside of what is occurring, right? So when you feel like the victim in something, then that puts you in a headspace, right? As opposed to you feeling empowered to say, hey, okay, this is happening around me, but here I am, and I get to choose what I do with these things. I get to choose what these things mean for me. And Dr. Rochelle, highlighted the fact of, I don't have to be in traffic. Like, I don't know where y'all live, but we live in Houston, Texas. And so to me, it was pretty cool to drive down the freeway at 5, 6 o'clock in the evening. It ain't nobody out there. I'm like, listen, This is everything. Because what we know around here, 5 o'clock, you don't go anywhere very fast on a regular day, right? And so now it looks very different. As the world begins to open back up, that's changing slightly. But it is definitely how you choose to see it. The gift of time with your family, the gift of time for yourself. Dr. Rochelle labeled it kind of a slowdown. How are you choosing to use this time? Are you reflecting right now? Are you just still rushing around and not taking a moment to sit back and reflect on some things? You know, many people are finding right now a great time to do things that they said they wanted to do but never had time to do, right? So there's a list of those. I tell my clients, make a list of all the things you said you would do if you had time and just work off that list. Like, we had at this point 60 some odd days, I believe, and I'm not counting, but I've been told by my children we're like day 60 something. TikTok counts apparently. I don't, but they know. So you know, we've had 60 some odd days to work through that list, right? You can be productive. It's an amazing time to do things you've always wanted to do. So my thought is definitely take the time to consider how you are perceiving what is happening right now. For some of us, it's literally challenging the thinking, challenging the negative thoughts that show up. When the thought shows up, you know, like, this is a terrible thing, and I can't, here's the thing everybody is saying: I can't wait to go back to normal. I'm just waiting for things to go back to normal. Well, here's my answer: I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. And here's the reality: it's not even realistic, because normal go back doesn't even exist anymore. Here's the thing you got to understand about trauma, y'all. We're in a traumatic situation. I mean, we established that earlier. Trauma changes the way you see yourself, other people, and the world. So understand that nothing about anything that we knew anything about before this happened is going to look the exact same once we come through this whole thing. Everything is different. You call it, it's different. Doesn't matter. Just whatever you want to call it. This has affected every aspect of our life. So to me, going back to normal is not really the goal. The goal is creating a new normal, because that's where we are. So, and then my thought is, and you comment on this as well too, some of the things that would look like the new normal might be some very positive things. Like, it may be a new normal to actually eat dinner at the table with your family. Imagine that. Like, simple stuff could be new normals that are really positive. What would be some other new normals you would think of, Dr. Rochelle?
So maybe the new normal is that you see more of your neighbors. You're more neighborly. You're able to interact with your neighbors more so than you ever have before, because everybody's on like a slowdown. So you have the ability to get to know your neighbor.
So because everybody outside, right? Because when was the last time, like, anybody been following me? I've been talking about this for the last 60 days. I am not an outside kind of gal, but I run outside every day. Like, that's a new normal. Like, you couldn't have paid me any money to make me believe that I would be going outside every single day, looking for the sun, looking for birds, looking for the trees and the wind. Like, there's no way I would have said, you're going to lose that bet, because I know that's not what I do. But the new normal now is I can go out, sit, and appreciate that where I couldn't before, because life didn't afford me, or I didn't choose to, or I didn't know that it was even a thing that I needed to actually do. So the new normal is what we need to create right now. I'm hopeful that folks begin to shift the thought process that says, I just want to go back, and decide that it wasn't that great no way. Sitting in traffic for 50 hours wasn't no fun. You know, rushing around all the time. Do number wear you out, you know. I mean, and we're talking about the mental health piece, but even physically, the lives that many of us lived before this pandemic hit and this quarantine occurred was so unhealthy. So unhealthy in so many ways.
I think as a parent myself, one of the things that I have been able to see with my kids is usually, you know, with kids, you have them in so many different activities. And my kids specifically have been so content not to do all of the things they were doing. And I was like, you know, that must have been more about me having them in those activities than them wanting to be in them, because they're fine. They are so fine. And so that whole slowdown, even with your kids, because when I started thinking about myself as a kid, I didn't have all those activities. We would go outside.
Mhm.
I may have had one or two things. And so I think, you know what? I like to go back to that. I like to go back to where you saw kids playing in the street, or they knew their neighbors because they were outside playing. And so
Mhm.
just some that slow down, that not on the go all the time, not being stuck in traffic, having time to reconnect with your friends or your family that you hadn't talked to. Right. Miss Spears says finally enjoying self-care. Absolutely.
Yeah, we didn't enjoy it, and we didn't make time for it because we said we was too busy sitting in traffic for 4 hours. Because people have described these amazing commutes. I spent 2.53 hours in traffic every day commute. It's like, whoa! Now your commute work from home is about 5 seconds, right? So that's a beautiful increase in your time that's available to you. But yeah, I mean, all of these things are part of the new normal. The things, to me, I look at it like the mindset that I take is the space of that gratitude piece. Because if I'm
Yes.
grateful for these things, then I can see the value they add to my life. When I resist them and I'm so mad that they're happening and I wish it was back like it used to be normal, then I'm in a space of not allowing the goodness that is here to be offered to really affect change in me. It can't, because I'm fighting against it. So the thought is just really encourage folks to consider how you're framing what's happening right now and how you're choosing to see the outcomes of our current place that we're in right now. You could decide this is the greatest thing that ever happened to you. I call COVID-19 a gift. Folks look at me like I'm
Yes.
crazy. Like, Dr. Shana, how in the world is this considered a gift? On what level of a gift are you talking about? So just think about it this way. A gift is usually something you don't know you're getting, unless it's your birthday, you expect it. But let's just talk about it in a general sense. Gifts you don't know you're getting. When you do get it and it's wrapped, you don't know what's inside. And once you unwrap it, you still don't know what it is. And when you unwrap it, you peel it a little bit at a time, trying to figure out what it is. And when you figure out what it is, you may not know what to do with it because you weren't expecting it. COVID-19 is a gift that we did not know we were getting. When we showed up, we didn't know what to do with it, and we still trying to figure out what it means. And so the reality is we can make it mean whatever we want to. I said earlier, nothing means anything until you give it meaning. Make it mean something good for you and yours.
And so I just want to, some of the attendees have said some things like Ms. Jacobs. She said, yes, reframing our mindset is awesome. I'm glad for this opportunity to slow down, to reset. She says, I like the gift of time and reflection. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Russell said, that's right, a new normal. Mr. Hurd says the same thing. New normal is good. Spears says, loving life, new mindset. I totally agree. Yes.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so much about your mindset centers around your mental health, right? So your mindset is that of growth or innovation. And what was the term you used? Post-traumatic. Did you say post-traumatic growth?
Yes.
So if you have that kind of mindset, then you're less likely to have some of these, anxiety. You might have an anxious moment, but it won't be pervasive. And so I think, mindset is everything.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It is. It is. And it's something that you have to work on every single day. Okay. The reality is we don't just show up at one point and moment in time and like, bam, it just shows up. The mindset shift is something that you have to purposely work toward and work through. If you don't do that every day, then what's going to show up is whatever happens. So we really have to be what I like to call an active party to our life. So we can just let stuff happen and be, and you could be like how a piece of paper in the wind just gonna blow wherever it goes, or you can be an active party to it and you can make some decisions for yourself. One of my favorite ways of helping myself and other people to create a frame for a day is making a decision. Affirmations are beautiful ways to set your mind on where you're headed. Today, I decided it's going to be an amazing day. What that means is it doesn't matter what happens. It's raining outside in Houston right now, but it's a beautiful day because I already decided before it even started, it was going to be amazing. It was going to be beautiful. So just these simple little things, you could write those on sticky notes. You can say those out loud. You could even record them in your phone so you can hear yourself saying these things. I just think we need to make a habit of telling ourselves some things that are very helpful, that are going to keep us in the positive mindset and mind frame, of progressive positivity and moving us toward the post traumatic growth. So there's that fixed mindset on the other side, right? And the fixed one is the one that is stuck perhaps in the past, talking about I want to go back to normal, and I don't want to be here, and I wish it wasn't this way. And then there's the growth mindset that says, you know what, I am here and I'm going to take all of what I have right now and make certain that I put this in a box, in a frame that is helpful for me. That's what we want to encourage you all to know, that you have the power. So many times in a traumatic situation, we can feel helpless. But the thing that we want you to know is be empowered, that you have the choice and you have an opportunity to do some things for yourself that are going to literally change the rest of your life. Like COVID-19 can be the thing that makes your entire world look completely different. Do you know that? Like the level of gratitude that you can have right now, the level of gratitude that you can have right now is amazing. And I want you to remember that. Don't find yourself in a space that you get so bogged down with the weight of COVID-19 that you miss the gift, that you miss the beauty, that you miss the amazing gift that it has to offer. So much so. Let's see. Melody says, I tell my husband, you have a choice to let things hurt you. We have choices. Rochelle says, as a teacher, how would a new normal look if we return to class? That is a great question, Rochelle. So many people are in a space right now that we don't have answers to those questions. We have no clue. We have no answers to those questions at all. No answers to those questions. I'm told that I have gotten frozen. I'm not sure what just happened. Hold on. Am I still frozen? Can you guys see me? If you can see me, let me know, because someone said I was frozen. I'm not frozen to myself, but let me know if I'm frozen on your end. And if something is happening with our technology, it might be this rain that we're feeling right now. Okay, I think I was frozen for a minute due to this rain that we're having. So hopefully the rain has dissipated and we're back and we're moving. Okay, I can be seen. Okay, I'm glad you guys can still see me. I thought I was frozen for a minute with the rain. But anyway, just make sure that you don't find yourself in a lost place because of COVID-19. Just make sure you don't find yourself in this lost place. I want you to focus on the gift. I want you to focus on the goodness. I want you to focus on the aspects of this that are beautiful. There's so many things that you can gain. So many things. And I'm just hopeful for all of you that are listening and watching that you are looking for that beauty, that line that says, this is amazing. Like I was listening to something today. I do a lot of positive things in the morning, and one of us listened to some podcasts. And one of the ones I listened to today, Eric Thomas, y'all know ET, that's my guy. He made the comment today. He was like, if not for COVID-19, I would not have fill in the blank. Like that's the space you want to be in, how it can help propel you and move you forward in the world that you're in your pursuits, in your family, in your mind, in your body, in your spirit. That's what I teach. That's what I teach. We really got to be in a space to move in that space.
Dr. Shana, were you able to, there were some questions from the participants. Were you able to, because I clearly.
Yeah, the storm kicked you out. I tell y'all, that's what the storms do. That's what the storms do for us. Yeah, we looked at a couple of them. Rochelle asked about the new normal. As a teacher, we have no clue what that looks like. There was one question I did not catch. I just saw it from Sanji. What are some ways we can help younger clients deal with anxiety during COVID-19? It's a good question. Dr. Rochelle, you work with you have a great history of working with children. What would you say for Sanji?
So I would say one of the things is kids look to you for direction and how to handle things. And so if you're super anxious and fearful, whether or not you say it or not, they pick up on it. And so I would say one of the first things to do is to kind of reel yourself in if you're struggling, and then they will, in turn feel whatever you're feeling. And then having discussions with them about, what it is that's going on. And so talking to them about the changes that are happening and how they feel about it, having that open communication and dialogue is important. And then doing regular check-ins with your students, with your kids about, because day to day things change, right? So much for them has changed, but checking in with them. Are you okay? How are things, for you right now? And then helping them to stay connected to their friends. So
Mhm.
if you're doing Zoom parties, maybe you're doing Zoom bingo, maybe you're doing, they can play video games where they're able to talk to, each other and communicate, or maybe they're just meeting on Skype or FaceTime, but keeping them connected
Mhm.
to their friends, getting them outside, to exercise and to run around, making things for them, I would say as normal, whatever that like for them as possible.
Mhm.
So, still playing basketball, still maybe take them to the park. Now they can't do the same things at the park that maybe they once were able to, but still doing some of the things that you were doing with them before. So their normal is different, but it's similar. So those are
Exactly. Exactly. Those are great things. And Dr. Rochelle and I both have young children. So what she described are the things that we're working to do ourselves to make sure we take care of ours. Because the kids are, they've struggled. This has been a lot for kids, the worry of it all. And one of the things that I always say too is answer kids' questions as honest as possible with age appropriateness. Take all the news away. Like kids should not be watching the news, y'all. And so I've had parents tell me, well, I watch it and they happen to be in the room, but that means they're watching it. So either you cut it off or you need to kick them out the room. I mean, what you choose, but children should not be watching the news. So I tell all my parents, cut the news off for kids. Their systems can't, because then they're trying to figure out what to do with it. You struggling, so how are they going to feel? Like we really have to protect their systems. They can be easily overloaded. Some of the impacts of the kids' anxiety is going to look like they can't sleep. They're having trouble eating. They can be irritable. Oh, kids can be very irritable. That's depression as well too. And so we want to make sure that we support them. Ask them, how are they doing? Ask them, tell me how your day was. Tell me, I have my kids grade their days. You can't just tell me it was fine. Like that's not an answer. That doesn't mean anything to me. I really want to know. And then we talk about, specifically what made your day great, what made an A day, a B day, or a C day, or whatever it might have been. So engage in conversation with our children is important. Get them outside of the house, and if we are able to do that for them, because they cannot do that for themselves. If we're able to do it for them, then they're going to fare better. And remember, as the adult, they are 100% watching how we're responding. 100%. If we are freaking out, what do you think they're going to do? Their anxiety is going to mirror or match ours. So we have to be very careful that we make sure that as the adults in their world, we're doing our best. And I understand our best is just our best. Every day is not a great day. And I'm saying every day has to be, but work to cultivate a space where the children are able to feel safe and that they don't feel like they have to take on your anxieties, because they will try to take them on. Because they see you and they don't want to see you upset. So they'll try to comfort you. It needs to be the other way around, because their level of impact is going to be so much greater than ours, because their brain is not even fully developed. I'm not going to get into neurology and all that stuff tonight, but their brains are not fully developed to even understand the capacity of what is actually happening right now. They have no clue. So we have to make sure we protect them. So hopefully that answers your question. I think that was Saji. So hopefully that answers your question this evening. But that's a great question. What do we do for the kids? That is a definitely important thing that we have to do. So were there any other questions that we needed to answer? Did we catch them all?
I think, as far as I could tell, those were all the questions.
Okay. All right. So one of the things too, and what we can do now is we can talk about what folks can expect for the rest of the week. And then we'll go on into our interview for this evening. So Dr. Rochelle, just kind of give them the lay of the land and what they can expect for the rest of the week, what kind of topics we have, what kind of folks we got coming on.
So tomorrow is a holiday, so we won't be with you guys tomorrow, but we will resume on Tuesday. And on Tuesday, we'll be talking about men and mental health. We'll be talking about grief, anxiety, and depression. We'll be talking about how COVID-19 is affecting families and parents, marriages, and then we'll be talking about COVID-19 and substance abuse. Right, that's something that we know is happening, but we don't necessarily talk a lot about. So that'll be what we conclude with on Friday. So we have a week full of amazing experts in each of these different areas. And so you'll get to hear, you'll get to ask questions, you'll get to join in, just like you have tonight. And so this has been great because I'm glad that you guys have asked us questions. And so that's what our week will look like. In a few minutes, we're going to bring on our next guest, and I will give you some more information about domestic violence and what that's looking like in a COVID-19 world.
Yes. And, with all the topics that we're going to be talking about this week, I won't say I have necessarily a favorite because they're all definitely important and valuable. I'm super excited about the one we're going to have on Tuesday for men and mental health. I love that conversation because so many times men folk, we don't get an opportunity to have a conversation because they say women talking all the time and we are always doing all of the things. And so we have some great guests who are coming on that night to join us to have that conversation. But tonight's conversation is one too that I'm excited about as well, because many of you who know me and follow me know that I am a founder of a domestic violence organization called Her Voice, and we are dedicated to empowering survivors of domestic violence through mentorship and education. So think big brothers, big sisters, but think about it for survivors of domestic violence. So I'm so excited about the conversation we will have this evening, and I'll let Dr. Rochelle finish her introduction so we can have that conversation.
Okay, everyone. So we are going into the segment where we're talking about domestic violence. And so I want to give you some information and some facts about domestic violence before I introduce our next speaker. And so what we know is that domestic violence reports have decreased. They're on the decline. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we are socially quarantined, right? So people aren't able to get away from their abuser long enough to report it. Most of the reports now are coming from the corner store or the grocery store, because they aren't able to get away from their abuser. Again, fewer victims. They may call the police, but fewer victims are filing complaints. They are afraid to leave not only their abuser, but they're afraid that they may have to go into a shelter where they may get COVID-19. So that is also another worry and concern. And then reports in 3 states, in Chicago, in 3 different, not states, but in Chicago and 3 different cities, Chicago, Austin, and Arizona, reports have declined, but what has increased? So Chicago has had 3 murders and 78 shootings during March and the first 2 weeks in April. And the same thing in Austin, there have been 66 strangulations. And so what we're seeing is the death rate has increased, but the reporting of domestic violence has decreased. And so we are bringing on Dr. Shanita Brown to talk more about domestic violence. She is a speaker, an educator, a licensed professional counselor, and trainer that believes in fostering transformative and empowering dialogue about intimate partner violence, African American women, and girls in mental health wellness. She established a platform to break the silence and empower change regarding intimate partner violence and mental health through education, empowerment, and inspiration. Dr. Shanita Brown has over 15 years of experience in the clinical mental health field, providing individual counseling in private practice, academic, and community mental health. She is a servant leader and passionate about disseminating her work in a variety of ways to increase awareness and influence the next generation of advocates and leaders. And so, with no further ado, Dr. Shana is going to take it away with Dr. Shanita Brown. Thank you.
All right. Well, let me see. Dr. Brown. Where is she? She is coming on. There she is. Hello, Dr. Brown.
Hello, Dr. Shana. How are you?
I am awesome. How are you, my friend?
It is so good to see you. I am doing well. I'm doing well.
Yes.
I'm doing well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Dr. Brown. This is such an important conversation, and I know for you it is precisely the work that you do 100% of the time. So when thinking of who can I bring for this conversation, you're definitely top of my list. And I appreciate the work that you do in North Carolina, right? And the Virginias over there on that side, on that coast of the world. Yes. And so tell us a little bit about some of the day-to-day work that you're seeing, the things Dr. Rochelle gave us, some kind of global kind of things that are going on. What kind of things are you seeing specifically where you are as it relates to domestic violence and how things have possibly changed during this time?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here for Mental Health Awareness Month and to join you, my sister, as always, doing the work in the counseling profession. So I'm grateful to serve again with you on this important topic. So with domestic violence, with COVID, it's right now, COVID has become another tool for power and control. So when we hear about these stay-at-home orders and safe, it's not safe for everyone. So it's important for our viewers to understand what may be safe at home for you may not be safe for someone who's in a very abusive relationship. And so the abusers begin to use the stay-at-home safety order as a tool of power and control due to job loss or stress seems to exacerbate. So you're going to see this increase in physical, emotional, all these tactics, various forms of violence. And it's harder for people in that situation to get away. It makes it very challenging to get away.
Absolutely. And so when folks would say in a regular time, which used to drive me bananas, well, why won't she just leave? Like, first of all,
yes,
that's the wrong question to ask.
Yes.
Ask the question, why won't he stop abusing her? Let's ask that question first, right? And instead of making her responsible for the abuse that she's enduring. But even now, the thought of leaving has its own set of stuff that it comes with because of the world that we're in.
Yeah.
And so just here in Harris County earlier today, I was reading another article. We have had a murder-suicide here in Harris County earlier today. And I'm told it's the third one in 72 hours, I believe we've had just here in Harris County. Now, what folks got to understand, in the whole state of Texas, Harris County, which is Houston, Texas, has the #1 record of homicides and domestic violence situations. The whole state of Texas, we are #1. It is not a record that we want to have, but it's one that we do have. And right now, if in the last 72 hours, we've had 3.
Wow.
That is devastating. And so when we say we got a problem, we have a major problem. I want to make sure too, as we talk, I'm going to put up here on the scroller the 800 number for the domestic violence hotline. And so if anyone is watching this live, or there's someone that you know in your world who may be struggling in this way, there is the 800 number that she is able to call if she needs some help right now. So with all that said, we're in this space. what is it that what do we need to be thinking about, Dr. Brown? What are the things that we need to consider? What are the things that people are unclear about? I know there's a lot of myths about domestic violence, and folks get this wrong just on any day, let alone in the COVID-19 world. Where do we start?
We start by talking about it. We start by holding the abusers accountable, right? We have to call it out. We have to name it. It is not easy for people, for women, for anybody. You know, domestic violence is similar to cancer. It sees no race, no religion, no ethnicity, no gender. Nobody gets exempt from it. So we have to understand it's very complex. And right now with COVID-19, families are in trapped situations. They are trapped with abusers. Things are escalating. Their children are experiencing more anxiety, more trauma-related stress. And so it is really challenging, but really we have to understand it is not easy to leave this oppressive, very volatile situation. It takes proper planning. It takes working with a trained advocate. We have to talk about it. We have to talk about, like you said, changing the narrative. And instead of saying, why does she stay? Like, why is this particular person trying to use their power and control? We have to really understand it first. We have to know what domestic violence is and what it isn't. And I think that's really important. Then we have to also educate our young boys and our young males about this culture message that they're receiving about women, this power and control, or just having ownership. We start by talking about it. We start by engaging our young boys at very early ages that it's okay to express your emotions. We can't do this work. You know, Dr. Shay and I, look, if we could have done it a long time ago, it was done. But we need men, because we know women are the trailblazers, but we need men to join in this fight to end domestic violence. And we have to hold the conversations. We have to place the blame where the blame needs to go. And that's not on the victim, but it's on the abuser.
Exactly. I mean, great point. And I say all the time, you know, that it's not just a woman problem, it's all of our problem, right? We tend to be the ones that are speaking out. We tend to be the ones that are the mouthpiece. And the numbers show that 85% of women, of all the victims of domestic violence, 85% of them tend to be women, 15% are men. Now that's reported, and we understand reported numbers aren't always 100% accurate because everybody doesn't tell the story. So what we need to make sure is that we're not discrediting or minimizing the fact that men can be victimized as well too. It can happen. But all of the work that I do is with women. So most of those that I'm working with, it's a male that's the abuser in the situation.
Absolutely.
Right. So just, I want to just make that disclaimer because I don't want anyone to be offended, because I do understand that men can be abused as well. But here's the thing, we do have to include men in the conversation. I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, it goes back to the very beginning of time. There's this societal, really slight way that we've embedded the idea that violence is okay from boys to girls. When girls are playing on the playground and the boy runs and hits her, what does everybody tell her about what that means?
He likes you.
Yes, like what?
Right. That's the message we're sending. Like, hey, mommy, this boy is hitting on me. Oh, he likes you. No. It starts very early, very early. We are really, you know, we have to talk about these relational templates, right? You know, the first image of relationships start at home. And so it's really important of what we are modeling to the best of our ability or to the lack of thereof. But when we begin to reflect on what did I see growing up? You know, how am I modeling a healthy relationship? Or maybe I'm not. What do I need to change? Because when we start very early, they begin to pick up and model this type of behavior. But also, as you said early on, the messages that we're sending our very young boys that you need to bottle up your emotions. You know, you can't cry. And we need to teach our young boys at a very early age, it's okay to express your emotions. It's okay to cry. That doesn't mean that you're weak. Right. And so it is important that the messages that we teach our young children very early on about healthy relationship really contributes to this conversation about violence against women and girls. Yeah,
it does. It does. We got to start. So if you are a mother of a son, you want to start having those conversations early. And it is not just a conversation. We have to model behavior because children are going to do what we do before they do what we say. So they're watching every single move that we make. They are. And so with the numbers as they are, with national studies showing that at least 50% of women are going to suffer from psychological abuse, at least about 50%, at least. We have a problem that is worth talking about, because I have people tell me, well, it don't affect me. I don't know nobody that's, my friends and my people, we don't have that issue. We are upstanding citizens and it's not an issue for us. And I'm like, do you know two women? I know a bunch of them. Then if one out of two that has either have had it happen, it is happening now, or it will happen to her, at least on a psychological way. Y'all want to know the soundtrack for that? You dumb, you stupid, you get cussed out, you told that you're ugly, don't nobody want you. That's the soundtrack. But people don't call it that, Dr. Brown. We call it a bad day.
Dr. Shannon, you bring up a good point. In my work, I do a lot of work with women as well, women and teen girls, and I have had a few some male survivors. But when women, my experience, having to, asking the questions, what is your relationship like? What are you afraid? We begin to ask these questions in our assessments. You begin like, so what I'm hearing sounds like it could be some tendency of an unhealthy relationship, right? And when you mention the word domestic violence, oh no, that is not me. Oh, it's just arguing, right? And so people minimize the psychological abuse, and sometimes, and what I see a lot, as you can probably can talk to, that if they're not hitting me, then it's not abuse.
Exactly. That is the biggest misnomer and myth of violence. Period. That you have to be struck. You have to be pushed, shoved, struck, have a wound of some sort for you to be considered abuse. Biggest myth out there. Absolutely.
Right. And Dr. Lewis, they have a hard time identifying what this abuse is. And I find helpful to say, well, what would you call it?
Yeah. Okay, that's a great question.
You tell me in your terms, in your language, what would you call what you're experiencing? And a lot of times, this is just the way we communicate, or this is
just the way it is.
I think, but with tears coming down the client's face, you don't like that.
You do not like it. Well, Dr. Brown, I want you to take just a minute to complete that whole circle, because I have the power and control wheel here, and I want you to share it, because I want folks to walk away understanding exactly what violence actually is, because so many label what you just described as just how it is. And it's not called violence. It's not called abuse. And so I believe that the way a woman reconciles what is happening to her will determine what she does about it. So when she calls it the way that it is, there's nothing she needs to do about it. It doesn't feel good. She doesn't like it, but it's just the way that it is. So she may not be as moved to do something about it. But I'm going to go ahead and put this diagram here for folks to see. And I'm going to, where'd it go? Did it leave me that fast? Hold on. It showed up and then it left me. Hold on, let me bring it back. Does you not want to show? It doesn't want to show me.
Yes, there we go.
Okay, there it is. Okay. So go ahead and talk about the different aspects of it.
This is a very powerful tool that I find very useful in helping clients and people understand. And I use it in all trainings, but because they really don't understand the core of domestic violence, all types of violence. Sexual violence, child abuse, any type of violence, the core is power and control. When one partner tries to maintain power and control over another intimate partner, and the power and control wheels really describes the various types of ways that the partner is trying to maintain power and control. So when I use and point this out to them, I said, so let's look at this. What stands out for you? And a lot of times they be like, oh yeah, oh definitely, yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, that happened too. And then there's this pause, because now they have begun to identify that what they have been experiencing are really forms of domestic violence. And I would say that it may take someone several sessions, or depends on who you're working with, whether you're working with an advocate or a clinician. It may take several meetings to really get to the point of saying, I have been in a domestic violence relationship. That's the process, because this is now you have some insight. There is a word to what you have been experiencing versus this is the way we are, or this is relationship drama, or we have highs and lows. I'm not really sure what to call it. We opposite sometimes. So, they come up with terms to describe what they're feeling, but when they find out there is a word that matches what they've been experiencing, it is very insightful, and it's a game changer. And so with this will, at the core you see is power and control. And the examples of emotional abuse, examples of physical abuse, examples of using isolation, using your children, examples of minimizing and blaming and denying. And I find really this psychological, women would say, they're not hitting me. I can't, because of the shame and the shame and the stigma attached to it. They're not hitting me. Oh yeah, we call each other names, right? So we get them excuses.
Exactly.
Well, we call each other names. So that's not really emotional abuse. When they begin to really look at it, oh wow. And the flip side of that is the equality will, right? And so you know the difference between a healthy relationship and an unhealthy relationship. And as I said, it takes time to really grasp like what this really is and put a name to it and beginning to move forward. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think the great value, what you just described about this will, is it puts a name, it labels the experience that you're having. And it's not just a bad day. It's not just how it is. It is a coercive control tactic. These are tactics. Isolation being one of the top ones that you're going to find on the wheel. And don't worry, if you can't see this wheel, if you have registered for the conference through the beaconinstitute.net website, or you text help to 224-435-5433, you will receive a copy of this power and control wheel. We'll have your information that way to send that to you, because this is important education. Because so many just dismiss all of these things. And Dr. Brown mentioned all of these things that are here. Half of them have nothing to do with physical harm at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's one that's called physical harm, right? The rest of them are other things.
Right.
All include abuse, all of them.
So Dr. Shannon, we have some time here. When we think about this, right, in the everyday world, now we're talking about COVID. It is escalated on so many levels, right? And so you have the economic abuse where you have to, women, sometimes their paychecks, they have to give their paychecks to their partners. They have access to their money. So when you begin talking about leaving and safety planning, you have to be really strategic in the very safest way on how you can begin to put money away without the partner in the business said, well, you didn't bring home $550 and every 2 weeks you bring home $550. Where's the other $50? If you're trying to save that $50, you have to account for, what am I going to save? How do I plan to save my own money and get out of this relationship? Because my ties, my financial beings, all of who I am as a person is attached to this perpetrator, this abuser, and they're trying to create a new financial identity. Yeah.
Exactly. That is the toughest thing, because it sounds so easy to just get your stuff and go. But when you talked about that, the economic abuse is the worst. The emotional abuse is the worst. And some of us will just dismiss that as, well, that shouldn't be a reason, or that she can't. First of all, what I tell folks is don't say what you would not do until you in a situation.
Absolutely. You can't say what you wouldn't do. We have to have compassion.
We do, and no judgment, because a woman that's lived inside of this, I want y'all to think about it. Literally, if someone is controlling every move that you make, from clothes to who you talk to, isolation is on there. We talked about the economic abuse, the psychological, there's even spiritual abuse, all the sexual abuse, all of these different ways of controlling you. She is literally being torn to pieces. So this segment is called Help, I'm in Pieces. She has been ripped into pieces.
Yes, absolutely.
She's shattered. And so when you're asking her, get up and go do this, and why don't you do that? She's shattered in pieces on the floor. So we really have to be in a space that we rally around her and support her. Do not judge her, because she's been through. If you looked at that wheel, there's many women who have been through every single one of those types of abuse in one relationship.
Right. And one that isn't up there that we don't talk about is the spiritual abuse that you mentioned before. So now we're thinking about how abusers are using tactics to control people from practicing their religious beliefs. Or your children have to practice this particular religious belief because that's what I said. Or they use the scriptures out of context. That really And that was part of my research of looking
I
at
know.
race and domestic violence and spirituality, how 8 women that I interviewed all experienced this form of the scriptures who were used out of context to keep them in bondage. I'm talking about people who've been in relationships and marriages 20 plus years. And they found their way out because they were trying to navigate their spirituality, or what should I do and stay in this oppressive relationship. So that isn't on the will, but there is another type of will at the form of it, which help faith communities understand the core of this domestic violence, and who may not ever experience getting beaten or manipulated. It's just this form of keeping people in relationship because of their religion.
Right. And some folks are asking some questions about that too. So let me look at the feed and get some questions. One of the questions is, why don't we have domestic violence ministries or healing ministries in the church? Why is that missing as a pivotal piece? It's a great question. And I know that's a great area for you. So won't you take that question?
Yes, that's probably one of the areas that I consult in, helping churches create domestic violence ministries. You have to be very strategic. You have to know the culture of your church. What do you hear your pastor saying? What do you hear your leaders saying? What do you hear your deacons and first ladies saying? So I would share that it is the conversation, just as with mental health is beginning to progress in the faith community. We are making some progress in domestic violence in regards to that church as well. You just have to really understand that the power dynamics in the institution of the particular church. For example, I have had several women say, I want my church to hold them accountable. Like, what are you looking for? So if there's someone who's in this situation right now and you considering, I want to go to my pastor because the pastor is my spiritual leader. So what I would tell someone is, what do you hear your faith leaders saying? What do you hear them saying from the pulpit? If they're not talking about it, that's an indicator you most likely would get re-victimized if you go to your faith leader about this abuse. I want you to hold them accountable. If your pastor is not talking about domestic violence and clearly calling it out as wrong, that's another indicator that may not be your best person to go to. You have to understand, because they don't talk about it. It's a taboo subject. Shame and guilt attached to it. And so really, they don't have the training. So faith leaders don't have the training. That's another area. I train faith leaders. You have to have training. There aren't training in divinity schools on how to work with people in abusive relationships. They focus more also keeping the marriage together, right? That's the wrong thing. So if you don't have the training and working in the domestic violence, then it's important to refer that couple to an agency or to an advocate who can help. Because when you begin to come into this situation where you're not trained, you're causing more harm. And then most likely what will happen, the victim will go and get abused again at home and being ridiculed, ostracized for talking to your pastor. So it is one of the things that you have to be very strategic. We have to be deliberate. We have to be intentional about this conversation of domestic violence and having a conversation in church.
Absolutely. That's excellent, excellent, excellent. Another piece is, boys and girls need to have training to be empowered a lot younger, right? To have healthy relationships. That's a very good point. We got to start that as young as possible. We have another question. Comment. Abuse can go both ways, from women to men too, but we don't talk about it. Why not? I've had a client who was a male being abused by his wife. We mentioned that briefly early. And why isn't it talked about? What would you say? What has been your experience as far as why it's not talked about?
Why we don't hear about more men being the victims? Oh, because of the stigma attached to it. You're supposed to man up. You're not supposed to. If a woman is abusing you, then that means you're weak. So it goes to this culture, and the message is that men aren't supposed to cry. Men aren't vulnerable. You're supposed to be strong, right? And so there are men who are abused. There are boys who are abused, but because of the messages in our society that men have to be strong and you can't cry, and if it shows any sign of weakness that you're punk, then they don't come forward.
Absolutely. It's the truth. I was at a conference, a domestic violence conference a couple years ago, and there were men on the panel, and these were men who were speaking out about the abuse that they endured at the hands of their wives or girlfriends, whoever it might have been. And they talked about just the sheer embarrassment of having to say that she abused me. and still having wounds right now today, physical wounds that have not healed, right, after however many years. The emasculation of it all, to the point that some men, if you want to go to a shelter because you have nowhere to go, you have no spaces to go to. Many, I mean, and if there is space, they're very limited, very small. They have to be, separated from the women and the children and all of these things. So we don't even have many resources for men, which is an issue altogether in itself. But yeah, all of it needs to be talked about. I absolutely agree with that. Thank you for bringing up that question. All of it needs to be addressed because it is a problem on all levels. Much of the research that I've done with women, I've had many of them describe that they've gone from one relationship that was abusive to another one. But there are cases where women who were in a violent relationship go into another one and they can become aggressive.
Yeah.
Because she says it's not going to happen again. And she becomes an aggressor. And this is what they've described to me, not even understanding why I'm trying to fight when I don't even really want to fight. But this is the effect of the traumatic results of violence in your home.
Yes, absolutely. They begin to take on that behavior. Oh, you may see, well, I saw my mom and dad fighting, right? And you hear, well, this is what I thought I was supposed to do. We just fight. And until they realize, well, that isn't a healthy relationship.
No.
So why I can't hit him back? That's what I saw. My mom and dad fought.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of research that will circle around that too, and saying that children that are raised in abusive and violent homes are more at risk for either being victimized or perpetrators themselves. I mean, children who suffer child sexual abuse too can be more vulnerable to violence as adults.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so many, and we don't always connect stuff to childhood, but as a clinician, we know that so much of what we do now, like probably 95% of it, probably came from way back younger. It did.
Yeah. Yes, and when we connect the dots, oh boy, right?
Oh boy,
we connect the dots. I find it very difficult in working with children. Not difficult, but I find that difficult for parents, right? I would say that is a hard conversation for parents who children have witnessed or in abusive relationships, and they will bring them in for counseling. And something is going on with my child, and I'm not really sure what it is, and the teacher can't seem to. They're always be disruptive, and we begin to ask those very difficult questions, but the necessary questions to help inform our treatment plan to better help the behavior, right? We ask the questions, and you notice parents will begin to look a certain way. No, that's not happening. That's not an issue for us, because they're afraid the CPS may be called, depending on the age.
Absolutely.
So that's a whole other dynamic or complexity.
It is.
And that's what's happened now with COVID. When you think about, the children are also in trapped situations, right? So I was looking at something on the news where the school counselors were saying they miss their babies because they know that some are not in safe environments. And so they were thinking of creative ways to kind of check in with them, like thumbs up if you're safe or thumbs down if you're not safe.
Right.
But there are barriers to that because of fear of, if they're not safe, then the school counselor will have to call CPS, and it just creates this dynamic, causing more stress and more trauma for children in these situations. And then there's the fear of also the police, right? What is especially for African American men, which is why African American women don't call the police. How Black men are treated in our system. So they said, I'm going to do my part and not be a part of the situation, so I keep continuing abuse.
Absolutely. So many reasons. But we have to have answers, right? Because we do. There are things that can be done. And one of them is to not suffer in silence. And this is one of the things that I really encourage any woman who might be listening right now, you or someone you don't have to do this alone, even right now. And I understand that COVID-19 makes all of this feel so much worse on so many levels, but your life is worth so much more.
Absolutely.
So much more. Because here's what we know. I mean, statistics will show and you know, we researchers, so we got numbers for this stuff. Y'all go look it up. Women will leave a violent relationship on average 7 to 11 times before she stays gone or she is killed. 7 to 11. That's a bunch, and that's just an average. Because I know I've talked to women, I'm sure you have too, Dr. Brown, have left way more times than that and come back. And some less than that. It took one time and I was out. But the average is 7 to 11. So when we think about this cycle, because it's called a cycle of violence, y'all, for a reason, because it goes around and around and around. You know, there's the different phases of the cycle of violence, which, well, let's talk about that for a minute too, so folks can understand how a woman can find herself still in something, because we got folks who will say, well, if anybody ever put their hands on me, you know, again, what I would or would not do. But the cycle is a real thing. And it's something that a woman will find herself in. And emotionally, the cycle can be, it's trickery. It can definitely be trickery. Will you speak to that some, Dr. Brown?
Well, you know, when I had a conversation about this cycle and some of the current research was talking about, this is really a continuum, right? You know, we don't create the cycle. And so the language has changed around this cycle of abuse. So what we know this cycle is something that the abuser is doing, right? And the woman or the victim is really trying to figure out where they are within this phase. So you have say like the honeymoon phase. They may say that I'm sorry, and then it kind of goes in a cycle. But really, this is a continuing until they get to that point of connecting with somebody to help them. That keeps them in the bondage and thinking, especially, what did I do to create this? What did I do that they're continuing to be upset about it? This is my fault. Well, you know, we begin that bargaining. Maybe I could do this, and maybe I could do something different. You know, it's always me, and that's that. You know, that psychological manipulation that begins to break down a person. Really help literally coming into pieces.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
They are all physically, physiologically, you know, their body, they begin to have unexplained illnesses and pains. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm beginning to have a lot of anxiety. I'm not sure. Were you in this situation for quite some time? You're falling apart.
Exactly. And depending on where you intercede or intercept with her, will determine where she is in her process, right? Because it is a process that she has to make a decision on what she wants to do. One of the worst things that people can do, and I try to help folks with this, and I'm sure you do the same thing, is don't tell her what she should be doing. Like, you need to do this. You better go do that. Because what happens when you, in as much love of where you're coming from, and I got that, but when you tell her what to do, you have now disempowered her in the same way that she's already been disempowered. The objective, and a lot of folks don't know what to do. So let's have that conversation. Folks don't know what to do when they find out, or when they're faced with it. Like, how do I help my sister, my coworker, my neighbor, my girlfriend, how do I even help? What do I say? Because sometimes the things that we say could be the worst thing that can make her never come back and tell you again that something is going on.
Absolutely. This is a great point, Dr. Shana. Just listen without judgment. Compassion. You're not in the situation. Listen without judgment. Ask, how can I support you? I'm concerned about your well-being. You are important to me. I love you. There are some resources here. I'm ready whenever you are. Just let me know. It's not a situation where somebody could just pick up and leave. The minute that happens, they may end up dead. So it is important to listen without judgment, with care and compassion and with grace, some empathy, versus like you saying, we're trying to say, well, you could just leave. We didn't just pick up your bags and leave. No, she can't do that. Doing what you can to understand domestic violence.
Yeah.
Right. Finding out, going to a shelter or going to an agency and volunteering, see what you can do to really understand the complexity of what your friend or family member may be in right now. Exactly. I mean, I have found that big sister said to me, well, I didn't tell my parents because they wanted me to stay in a relationship.
Right.
Or I didn't tell my friend because they would judge me. So they had to find people outside of their network who were supporters, who were able to listen and say, I'm not really sure, but I know this is really hard for you.
Yeah.
I would do what I can to support you. We can call somebody. This is the work. Let's do this together. Just partnering with them is so important. Knowing that somebody is walking with them by their side, because they're trying to make some very difficult situations, and they're trying to make some very difficult decisions, and trying that walk to freedom is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes several sessions. I work with people who are out the relationship 20 years and still trying to get back to doing things that they used to do. The traumas resurfacing a lot, so it's a lot of things happening. Just seeing how we can be supportive and partnering with them.
I love the word partnering. I think that's a beautiful way to see it, because as a partner, I'm not in control of you. You're in control of me. I'm here with you, right? We're walking this thing through together. And I think that's what she could really use, is someone to be here as a partner to say, what is it that you want to do? That's a simple question. What do you want? Because I mean, you may see or hear the results of what's happening that is violence, but it's still up to her to make a decision about what she wants to do about it. And I've had women tell me that folks have just told them, well, don't come back to me no more because I told you to leave. And now let's circle back to the number I said earlier, 7 to 11 times on average, she will leave before she stays gone for good, or she's killed. When you tell her, don't come back to me because I don't want to hear it, now you've shut her down. Go if she even decides to come. So
absolutely.
It's a space. If you're a partner, I'm here for you whenever you are ready. Like I'll be here.
Right.
When you're ready.
It's so important. And if they tell you they're not ready, be okay with the answer.
There you go.
Be okay. This is their decision. This is their situation. You're not in their shoes. You have no idea what they're experiencing. Do the best you can to be okay with where they are and continue trying to partner with them and support them. What do you need for me to do for you?
Yeah.
How can I support you? We're going to start a savings account together. Like these things, being okay with that, because a lot of times what I've heard from people that, they got upset with my answer because I wasn't ready to leave when they told me I needed to leave. Like, how do you tell somebody when they should leave a relationship?
Right.
Especially in a dangerous situation.
Yes, because
it's dangerous. I think people don't understand the dynamics. It's very dangerous.
When she is leaving, the lethality for her goes up higher than it ever is. Yeah. When she is leaving, she is in the most danger of being killed when she's leaving, if he were to find that out. So it's not just open and close like so many of us would want to think that it just makes sense. It's not, because it's such a very volatile, vulnerable situation for so many reasons. Now, one thing I do want to talk about, Dr. Brown, before we run out of time tonight, is the mental health aspect of domestic violence. Because, what we understand, all the different types of violence that occur, most the women, and I am not a survivor, so I don't have a lived experience to come from, but what I've learned from the women who I've been fortunate to partner with in their journeys is that the emotional, the mental, that part of abuse, that the results of that are in many ways cut deeper than any wound that was physical that ever could. What kind of mental health issues, what kind of mental health problems do you see in your work from women who have endured years of these kind of relationships? What kind of things have shown up for you in your practice?
Oh, wow. It's just the trauma. Trauma changes the way we think in our body. The book called The Body Keeps Score. Trauma stays with us. It changes the way we think. You have to think about somebody who's experienced 20 years of emotional abuse, whether it's 1 year, 20 years. That trauma has really changed and rewired their brains and tell them things that are not really good things about them because that's what they've heard. And so now they have to rewire their thoughts. They have to do the work to reframe their mind and to have healthy thoughts and healthy belief systems because of the trauma that they have experienced. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of depression. There's a lot of PTSD. There are a lot of people that I've seen say, I'm stuck. I'm not really sure. They're afraid to go places. They're nightmares. I've worked with people where they were on several antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication. They weren't sleeping. They weren't sure what was happening with their body. But when they begin to do the work, right? And that work is necessary and challenging. But as clinicians, and Dr. Shay will speak to, we partner with our clients. Facilitators. They do the work. We just help guide them. And so when we work together and begin to guide them, they begin to see some of that change. And it is very empowering for me to see people who come off medication. Some of that very heavy lifting, trauma, and learning how to respond and learning that this is a trauma-based response. I didn't know why I was showing up this way, why I was yelling, or what's coming up for me. But it's a trauma because of what I've experienced. You know, it is very it's very damaging. It is very damaging, but healing is possible.
It is.
I want you to know that healing is possible. I've seen it. It is definitely possible. Yeah.
It is. It is. And that's the beauty of the work that we get to do, because I, like you, just love to see a woman be able to walk back into her who-ness, which is what I call it. When you come back to who you are and you're able to reconnect with her and stand proud and tall, after all of what has happened, because a woman had described to me one point, she felt very broken right on the inside into those pieces, and the depression sets in as you described. So what we have to understand is that women in these situations, when they've been so heavily abused, they can get to the place that they actually want to kill themselves. Women can decide, I can't do this anymore.
Right. And I was about to, transition to that, substance use, right?
Yeah, that's a good one.
To substances to numb out the pain. In my research, one of my participants said they turn to crack, or they turn to street drugs. They want to numb the pain. And so alcohol. So we're dealing with not only the trauma, and then how do we deal and kind of quiet the voices? We turn to unhealthy or maladaptive coping strategies that are not good. And so a lot of times they're dealing with substance use as well, of the anxiety, the depression, the trauma, as well as that. So it's layered. It's layers. Layers when how their emotional health and their mental health has been challenged and damaged.
Yes, it is so not a one-dimensional issue. There's so many levels of this. And so I wanted to bring up these different aspects because I want the viewers to understand that domestic violence, intimate partner violence is so vast, and it has so many areas that it covers, and it affects so much of who she is as a woman, who she thinks she is. Because in many ways, if she has been the victim of this kind of abuse, she has lost sight of who she is, because she's been told, mind manipulated to believe that she can't, that she's no good, that she's not smart enough, she's not pretty enough, that she can't do it without him, and that he gonna take the kid, she's a poor mother. I mean, all of these things. And when she comes to therapy, and this is the thing that I have found so often, and so many women do not seek clinical help. They do this by themselves.
Yes.
And when I tell you, by the time that I have had women who come to me, either it got so bad that she realized she just couldn't, and then she came to seek help. But when she came, Dr. Brown, she didn't come telling me she was in a violent relationship, though. She came with something else. She said, we have communication problems. That's what she called. But as we get to talking and uncovering and labeling and calling a thing, then we're able to see what it is that we're really working with. Because she didn't understand what it was, which is why this conversation is important, to help people label things correctly, call it what it is, and know that you don't have to go it alone. Like that is it's like carrying a 10,000-pound weight.
Yes.
All by yourself. And you got folks standing right here in front of you that could literally help. You got 100 of them that could take 100 pieces of the weight all off your back, and all you need to carry is 100. We can help in partnership, okay? Help walk that thing out. So I want women to know they don't have to do this by themselves. Like that is the thing.
No, absolutely. You're not alone. There are people out here, resources out here. And I would tell you, Dr. Shana, a lot of this, after, like you say, it shows up and you later learn, what's happening for you. Then we begin to talk about, let's tell me about have you experienced any traumatic experiences?
Yep.
And then we begin to educate them about trauma.
Yep.
And they begin to make that connection. You have experienced trauma for so long.
Yep.
And it's no wonder, now you felt you couldn't do this, or you couldn't go outside, or you couldn't start that business because you've been told that you're a failure. You can never do anything, right?
Yep.
And so you begin to think that because of the traumatic experiences that you have. And so a lot of times you need specific specialized theoretical orientations and theories that will work for them to help them decompress and break down that trauma. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, if you're just tuning in, you are watching Help in a COVID-19 World. This is a virtual mental health summit. And I'm Dr. Shana D. Lewis, one of the co-hosts, and my guest here this evening is Dr. Shanita Brown. She's an expert in domestic violence, and we're having a conversation about how domestic violence is affecting women right now in the COVID-19 world, what it is, how to help, and what you can actually do if you or someone you love is in this situation. We've talked about a whole lot of stuff. I tell you, an hour goes by so fast, and you can really get down to it. If you guys have any questions before, we're just about out of time in a few minutes. If you have any other questions, now would be the appointed time to pop them into the chat box, as we will definitely look through those before we pop off for this evening. But, so Dr. Brown, what would you say would be, if you had to say like the one thing, if we got a woman on the line right now, she's watching this, she's in the space right now, she's in this relationship and she's listening, what do you want her to hear? If she didn't hear anything else we said, what's one thing you want to make sure she hears tonight?
To hang in there.
To
hang in there. There are virtual resources. Some of our national domestic violence hotlines and coalitions, they have virtual resources to hang in there, to let a friend know your situation, let a trusted friend know that you're in this situation. Don't lose hope. Yeah, don't lose hope.
Don't lose hope. That's a beautiful thing. Hope is what gets us up in the morning. Yeah. The hope that things can be different, the hope that I can figure out something, the hope that I can find a way, make a way, talk to somebody. I've had some women tell me, I didn't know if I could do it on my own, but it was talking to a counselor that helped me understand that I could have hope, that it was hope for me. And this is the value in not doing it by yourself, ladies.
Yes.
Not doing it by yourself. It's too heavy of a weight to carry alone. And I want to make sure you are safe. For those of you who are the loved ones and the friends, in no way are we saying put yourself in any kind of danger and interceding or intervening in a space where you might be harmed. But what we're saying is let her know you're available. Let her know that you're here. Let her know that you're listening, and let her know that you see what's happening. Because sometimes women have said, I didn't think anyone noticed. I didn't think anyone cared, because he told me they're not your real friends anyway. They're not your family. They're jealous of us, so don't talk to them. I thought they didn't care or knew. But when you say to her, sis, I'm like the words you said earlier, Dr. Brown, was so great. Sis, I'm concerned about you. I'm concerned for your well-being. I'm concerned for you. And tell her why. Give her the reasons. Tell her why you're concerned. Oh, tell her why.
Hope when you hear that from a family or a trusted friend. I'm concerned about your well-being. Things are not good right now. Are you all safe? Let's create a safe word to let me know you're not safe. Who can we call? So COVID is changing safety planning, right? So we have the safety planning, and then we have emotional safety planning, because now they're in this situation, they're trapped. And so it's looking at, people who used to go to groups, right? Even if their plan was to gradually leave, they had that extra support group. They're no longer able to do that, especially in a rural community. Access to the internet. You have one shelter.
Yep.
About people in marginalized and women of color, and how they are really dealing with systemic barriers. It is really challenging right now for people in this very domestic violence relationships.
It is. But just know, even in the midst of a COVID-19 world, ladies, there is still hope. There is still hope. You have an opportunity. And one of the things I say this all the time is we always have options. They may not be attractive all the time. They may not be easy all the time, but we have options. When I say options, this means you get to choose this or that. And all of them may not feel good. I'm not saying that they do, but I want you to know that they exist. And sometimes we have to just sometimes other people have to show us what the options might actually be.
Right.
This is the value in having, these kind of conversations. And know that you can receive counseling right now virtually on your phone. If there's a safe place you can go to and have a conversation, you can have them by your phone. If you are in need of help and you're anywhere in this world, you can call that domestic violence hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE. That's scrolling at the bottom of our screen. If you are in need of reaching out to Dr. Shanita Brown, because you will train, tell all the folks who you train. I know you train clinicians in churches and what all the work that you do, so people will know what you can do.
Yeah, I train clinicians. I train clinicians, faith communities, faith leaders, other students, counselors, mental health professionals, universities, corporations. I'm really creating the core of this, having this dialogue about healthy relationships. It's important to have the conversation about healthy relationships. Together we can change the narrative, but together we have to do it.
Yes, it is something that we must do together. And so they can reach you at drshanitaBrown.com. Is there any other space that they can reach you on, Dr. Brown?
Yes, on Instagram at Dr. Shanita Brown, on Facebook, Dr. Shanita Brown, also on Twitter, Dr. S. Brown.
So if you have any needs in that way, if you are in the North Carolina on that side of the coast area, on the East Coast, but in fact, though, Dr. Brown will travel as soon as the world opens back up and travel is approved. That is not a problem. We are world travelers. That's what we do. I am definitely appreciative of you being here. Thank you so much. This conversation was wonderful. I hope that it was helpful to you all who were on the line listening. If you had, I don't think I've missed any questions. Some folks are saying they would love to hear someone from the church perspective. That's another conversation to definitely have. Absolutely, absolutely. And this is just one of many. You know, we good for having conversations because we all about talking about it, right, Dr. Brown? Don't you worry. We are all about talking about it. I don't think I missed any questions. We do have some folks here who were watching who have shared some of their stories of violence. Thank you, ladies, for being here. And thank you for being transparent and genuine and authentic and brave to share your testimony, because somebody in this feed needed to hear that there is a way out and life can look different on the other side. So thank you, Gwendolyn. Thank you, Karen. We had a couple of ladies that I'm just seeing now who have shared some of their stories. So thank you guys so much for
sharing. Thanks for your courage. Yeah, you empower someone else.
Absolutely. You just don't know.
Watching in this situation that they can get out too.
Yes, that's what she will know. That's what she will know. That's what she will know. Okay, well, Dr. Brown, I will give you back your evening. I say thank you again for being here. You, my sister. I just enjoy our time together. And y'all don't know, but we go way back to the National Board of Certified Counselors Minority Fellowship Program, 20-something. I don't know.
Fabulous too.
There you is, 2014. So we've been colleagues and girlfriends for quite a few years now. So I appreciate our friendship and your willingness to share this conversation tonight. So thank you for helping
for having me, and keep doing the work. I look forward to next time we can present together again.
Yes, ma'am. We will. We definitely will. You have a great evening. Thank you, sis.
You all take care. Stay safe.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I really hope that you guys enjoyed that conversation with Dr. Brown. I am so appreciative of folks like her who are willing to just share, right? Share their expertise, share the things that they are able to do to help serve. We are all in a space right now that service is so important. I'm a huge servant, and I'm grateful that I have, friends and girlfriends in my world who are willing to share in that way. So just know that if you registered for the conference, you will receive the graphic. It was called the Power and Control Wheel. That is the graphic that we use to describe domestic violence. So it will be emailed to you. If you didn't register, you will be able to text in help to 224-435-5433, and you will receive it by text message. So if you want to get real life updates of when we're going live or when the next episode is occurring, then go ahead and text help right now to 224-435-5433, and we will be able to get those text messages to you in real time. Also, for those of you who are on the line and you are clinicians, you're a social worker, you are a counselor, or you are a marriage and family therapist, I'm so grateful to our sponsor for CEUs. That is Sam Houston State University Counselor Education Department. Bearcats, those are my folks. That's where I got my PhD from. And so I'm grateful for them for being willing to sponsor to produce the CEUs for tonight. So what'll happen is after our live, everyone who is registered, you'll need to be registered. Everyone who is live, you will, if you register, you will receive a link in an email that you'll be able to answer the CEU questions, and then you'll be able to, it's $5 for the CEU. It'll be emailed to you for each night. Dr. Rochelle, how was that conversation? Was that not a good one?
That was awesome. I was like, I got for myself that I had to write down. I love that power control wheel.
Yes. Good stuff. So I'm just grateful. I think we're off to a really great start, and our week is going to be fire as well too. So I think you had given earlier the schedule, but go ahead and give it to them again. Let them know what's happening next couple of nights so folks know when they need to come back.
Yes. So again, tomorrow's a holiday, so we are taking a break for tomorrow, but be sure to come back for the rest of the week. So Tuesday is Men and Mental Health. You don't want to miss that one, of course. And then Wednesday, we'll be talking about depression, grief, and anxiety, right? And we know that in a COVID-19 world, there is a lot of depression, anxiety, and people are experiencing grief at alarming rates. And so you want to come back and you want to hear the discussion on that. And then on Thursday, we'll be talking about families, parents, marriages, and how all of those things are working, right? Because we know there are lots of stressors with parents working and trying to deal with their kids and no summer camp. And then even relationships with the husband and the wife being at home, working from home. That's a whole nother.
Child, that's going to be a good one that night.
Yeah. And then Friday, we end our virtual summit with substance abuse, right? Because we know that there is an increase in substance use, right? Because we're looking for ways to cope. And a lot of times people are going back to those things that they are familiar with. And so we'll end the night with, we'll end the summit with, the discussion on substance abuse. So guys, please come back and join us. You don't want to miss it. It will be live at 5. No, we'll be live at 7.
Yeah, live at 7, right? Come back at 7. Don't be here at 5. We won't be here at 5.
Yeah.
And those conversations will just be 1 hour. Remember, today was the double header. Unfortunately, technology did not allow Dr. Obom Bowen to be with us, but be on the lookout. We will definitely bring you that conversation because that's going to be fire. You don't want to miss that. And we'll let you know when we'll have that at a separate time. And you'll be definitely invited to that as well. So I just want to say, this has been a great way to start off a holiday weekend for me, I think. I'm excited about having a day off tomorrow, and I'm hoping everybody else enjoys their Memorial Day holiday tomorrow. And you'll be back here with us on Tuesday at 7 p.m. for the Men and Mental Health. Don't forget, if you are a clinician and you need CEUs, check that email. If you have not registered, you won't get that email. So you want to make sure you're registered so you get the email where you can get your CEUs taken care of. $5 for each night will get you a CEU for that night. Okay. If you have questions, just let us know. We are definitely here to serve, and we'll see you guys on Tuesday. Have fun tomorrow, folks.
Bye-bye. Have a good
night.
Monday.